Good morning. Welcome to week 6. This week we are going to be looking at engagement and the therapeutic alliance. I will talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but first I just wanted to say I am very much appreciating getting to know each of you more, both through your engagement in the discussions and your written assignments, as well as through the site visits, which have begun. I also wanted to add, while it seems as though many are developing some very positive working relationships with their field instructors, you should feel free. I encourage you to reach out to me at any time if there's anything that's concerning, any questions, even if it's just to use me as a sounding board. We can speak confidentially. So I am here to support you so that you have the most productive experience. So just email me or give me a call and we can schedule a time to talk. So this week 6, engagement and the therapeutic alliance. This week there are 2 readings, The Use of Self by Dwayne and The Use of Self in CBT by McLaren. Use of self in CBT is something that's not frequently looked at or talked about, so I do think you'll find this article very useful in applying and kind of integrating that thought of how we use ourselves as clinical social workers and how that impacts our work with clients, both through our personalities, our belief systems, the way we relate to people, use of self-disclosure and all of that, and how that impacts the use of cognitive behavioral therapy. So you will do 2 readings. There's also a very brief video by Dr. Alan Shore who talks about the therapeutic alliance. He's done a lot of work, especially focused on trauma. So I encourage you, as you're doing the readings, after you do the readings, to be thinking about how you're engaging with clients. When does engagement begin? When do you think it should begin? How are you incorporating how you conceptualize it into how you're interacting in field? So for example, if you're working at an outpatient clinic, do you see engagement as starting the minute the client comes to your office, or do you see it starting before that when they call to schedule their intake appointment? How does your agency structure engagement? Do they send out reminder calls? How does that work, and what is the tone of that, and what do you think that communicates to the client, and how does that impact what evolves into your working relationship with them? So for example, I think I referenced in an earlier video, there was an outpatient clinic I worked in, and the security guard came across as pretty gruff and unwelcoming, abrasive personality. And I remember thinking a lot about what that might have been like for clients as they were walking into a building coming for therapy, and the first person they saw was this abrasive, not really very helpful, warm, welcoming person. So thinking about that, and how does that impact the client's experience of coming to you for services? And then how can you, impact what you do have control over to foster a positive engagement that's going to serve the client and the relationship well? There is then a discussion for you to engage in this week, and that involves having you think about a case either that you're working on now or that you worked on in the past. If you're still shadowing clinicians, you can use a client that you've shadowed. And looking at first, what you'll first need to do is give us some background on the client. So tell us a little bit about the client system, gender, race, marital status, gender identity, and the setting where you're seeing the client or saw the client, what brought the client for services, and what is your role in working with them. So give us a little bit of background like that, and then after you've set that up for us, take a look at, inviting you to take a look at what transference and countertransference issues came up. How did you deal with them? And if you were shadowing, this could be a little bit trickier. So how were you impacted? Really just focusing on yourself. And even if you were just shadowing, how did you deal with that? How would you imagine you would have dealt with that if you were the primary clinician for the client? And then now that you've had some time and space from that, perhaps you've talked about it in supervision, what would you do differently now? So what did you do in this situation? And now that you've had some time, if you could do it over again, what would you do? What do you think would serve the client better? So that is the assignment for the week. That's, of course, due Thursday, and then you'll respond to at least one peer by Sunday. And remember to please make sure you're giving specific feedback, things that either you noticed that you thought that your peer did really well, but maybe something that they didn't think of that you would like to offer to them to think about to further and enhance their learning, or something that they mentioned that you hadn't thought about it, and then specifically how you're going to integrate that into your own. The other thing I wanted to bring up is just a heads up for week 7, a reminder that your process recording is due by week 7, signed and submitted by your field instructor. So it must be signed by them. I should be able to see feedback that they've given you on the process recording and their signature, and upload that, please. And also in week 7, there's an assignment that's a dyad assignment. So later this week you will get, I will post something informing you of who you've been assigned to be in a dyad with. I'm going to partner people up, and a little bit more instructions in advance to get you prepared for that. That way it gives you a little bit more time to try to connect with your partner